Good morning and welcome to PFY Live, our weekly podcast where I get to share hope, encouragement, and new creative ways to do ministry in this new season in our world and the church. Hi, I'm Amy Cummings, Executive Director with Partnership for Youth. And again, welcome to PFY Live. Our guest today is Andrew Wagenbach. Andrew is the Director of Youth for the Parish of St. Charles Borromeo. He is a graduate of Franciscan University in Steubenville, Ohio, with his degree in theology and catechesis and a concentration in youth ministry. He loves his dream job of doing parish ministry with all of its blessings and challenges. Andrew and his wife have 4 adorable little boys, and they're located here in the Twin Cities. So welcome to the program, Andrew.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the invite. I love what you said about sharing some good news and some hope in these crazy, crazy times.
Right. We have, we are living in times no one has lived through. And so we don't have like a roadmap, right? To like, where are we going? What are we doing? And how long will this last, right? And
we never had a class on this in college. They didn't teach us how to deal with global pandemics in any youth ministry classes. So
exactly. I'm excited for the topic that we're going to discuss today, which is doing youth ministry outdoors. And, here in Minnesota, it's a gorgeous day here today, and it has been this whole week. So the humidity's been down. It's been great. Why do we have to do ministry outside? I mean, let's just kind of start there and kind of set a premise for, the thoughts and what you've been busy about doing in your ministry.
Yeah, well, I think because if you want to have more than 10 people at anything, you have to do it outside. And if it's not, for a long time, it was that you couldn't have more than, 10 people indoors unless it was a mass. And then they kind of changed those rules. But the biggest thing was you can have up to 25 kids outside at any point in time once they changed that guideline. And so once that changed, we were able to start up youth groups again because luckily we're not a huge parish. And so we don't break that number very often. And so it was just great to be able to kind of start opening things up and doing middle school and high school youth ministry. And it was so hard to do everything online when ministry is supposed to be based on these relationships. And it's very difficult to build a relationship online via any virtual platform at all. And so it was just so awesome that we were able to then come back to meeting with people. And so we're doing it outside so that more people can be part of it.
Yeah. How did the kids respond to that? How did the young people respond to that invitation to come back to the youth program and that it would be outdoors?
Yeah, with this beautiful weather that we've been having, and it's just amazing to kind of see them just get so excited to be back. I think all of us felt that. All of us felt the drain of being stuck either in our homes or on a screen or wherever we were. And so once we were able to kind of start offering things again, it was just they would get out of their car and they would run and they'd like quick do the like, bye mom, and then they were already out there, playing the game or whatever we were doing. And they were just so excited to be with each other. And it was beautiful to watch them get that excited.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure it was good for parents too. I'm sure parents were encouraged and also, just delighted that kids were back doing some ministry and back at the parish and back with their friends too, and I think that's a big part of the isolation and the time away from community.
Yeah, I had a lot of emails from parents thanking me. I get them often, just thanking me for the things that we're doing and the things that we're offering. I think a lot of places people are nervous or worried about potentially passing on the virus, which is totally understandable because it is a contagious virus, just like any virus. But we're still able to do a lot of programs and a lot of things. And especially with the outdoor component, there is a lot of safety involved. And the parents were super excited when we were saying we were going to start doing stuff outdoors. And I was shocked at how many kids just started coming out of the woodwork, and kids that I didn't even really expect to come, but because they were so isolated and they hadn't been in school and they hadn't been seeing each other in sports. And that was actually a huge blessing that there wasn't anything else going on. So when we opened up, we got a lot of kids that we wouldn't have normally gotten because they would have been in sports or they would have done things with other extracurriculars. And so it was great. When we started, we had a lot of kids that maybe had never come before. They were invited by a youth group kid, and it was great to see just that camaraderie being built and them kind of evangelizing their friends.
Yeah, yeah. I've been kind of using the phrase like divine interruption, right? Like the Lord has kind of stopped everyone's life, and that's beautiful to see kind of the silver lining. We often hear so much negativity about the pandemic and then the riots and the racism and all of that that's been going on. But to really find those moments of, well, where's the silver lining in it? Where do we see God working in this moment? And even more than we could have expected, like you said, kids coming who don't normally come to the program because there was nothing else for them to do, and the Lord's working in those moments too. What makes, I guess, doing outdoors just as effective, or maybe even more effective than your traditional youth ministry program of doing things in the church or in school base or wherever you were doing it?
Yeah, and I was shocked to hear the stories of these families that were all stuck together, and they had like a time every day that they would go for a walk together. And I was kind of, I was inspired by that because I was thinking to myself, we spend so much time inside, especially in Minnesota when it's freezing cold, unless you really embrace the outdoors, which I love. I love snow sports, but you get cold after a while or wet and you got to go inside. And so to be outside, this actually couldn't have happened at a better time because spring was hitting. We had summer ahead of us. And so we were able to go outside. And so I guess too, I see these kids just starting to fall in love with God's creation and with beauty. We are very blessed at St. Charles to have a beautiful exterior of our church. And so since we can't go in the church, we actually spend a lot of time looking at all the different like carvings and images and all the things on the church. And we kind of have been talking about architecture and really leading the kids into truth, beauty, and goodness, the transcendentals. And so it's been really cool just to watch them start to fall in love with actually looking around them and seeing what is before them. I think sometimes we get so like focused on what we're doing, whether the sports, school, whatever we're in. We spent a lot of time outside, and I had the kids just like kind of sit and look around and see where they could find God. And one kid was like, "Man, look at the moon's coming up," And then we talked about the reality of the moon reflects the light of the sun, and that Mary stands on the moon and is kind of an image of our Blessed Mother, that she reflects the love of Jesus Christ. And so it's just been really cool to see these kids fall in love with the outdoors. Also, too, some of my favorite saints are very outdoorsmen. Like Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati was a mountain climber. I named my first son Pierre kind of after him. And then another one, John Paul II, is a hero of mine. I love him. And I still remember seeing this in high school. I remember a picture that we were shown at confirmation class where he had flipped his canoe over and he was having mass on the canoe at an outdoor trip. And I was just like, that's so cool, because that is really the church kind of meeting people where they're at. We can't go inside. We can't have more than 10 people. And when you have less than 10 people or about 10 people, it's kind of lame unless it's a small group, and you really love these people. But if it's kids that are coming that maybe haven't come before and they're sitting in a circle and they can't do anything because we just have to sit there and talk and stare at each other, they don't really find that as fun. And so the outdoor thing really was a way to meet people where they were at. And really, it gave us an opportunity to continue to do ministry the way that I know I love to do ministry, which is very relational, which is very high energy, exciting. We want to make these kids feel like they have something at church that they can't find somewhere else. And I think we have to do that through fun, excitement, so that they start to have that relationship, and then they start to ask these questions. Well, what does the church teach, and why does she teach that, and what does that look like? So that was the big reason. Is I saw families doing it, and I was like, we can totally do that too.
Yeah, yeah. The outdoors, I think it's so, you hit upon, I think, a really important point. We're seeing a lot more families outdoors, and I know we live right across from a lake here, so lots of families were going out for walks. I mean, more than I've seen ever. And then just thinking of outdoor supplies, like to find a fishing rod or to find a bike or to find all of those things are we're completely sold out. And so people are really I don't know, just it seems to me like it's such a beautiful, God, even in craziness, even in bad times, the Lord shines through and he finds ways to engage in our lives if we let him, right? If we're present with him and we let him. And I just think, as a society, we've been so busy, so like you said, focused on sports, focused on doing this, traveling there, and just even school things are so busy for kids. And so to have to just basically come to a halt almost, it is forcing us to, I think, make different decisions. I'm seeing a lot of families really, praying about different decisions and moving and job decisions and homeschool versus, the public school or private school, just all those things that they're taking time to really think about and make some different decisions for their families. And so, and we love the outdoors too. I mean, obviously my husband's a hunter, and so outdoor hunter and fisherman and outdoors, that's where we spend a lot of time all year round. Do you have to implement, Andrew, when you guys are outside, like the whole social distancing thing, and how has that been working, and how do you get teens to kind of, work with you on that? Because I know that they probably don't love that part of it either.
No, and they're really bad at it. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but they are, because they're such communal beings. I mean, they love to high five, and they love to cheer each other on and pat each other on the back and give hugs when they come. And so what we normally do is, the way that we do it is we just do it on the front lawns. We have a beautiful front lawn. It's almost the size of a football field. And so we have them all come, and we have sanitizer right there. So they all sanitize their hands, and then they're given a pool noodle. And you might think to yourself, are we going swimming? No, we're not. But we're social distancing, because, I mean, I measured my arm one time because I wanted to know how long it was, and it's about 2 feet. Like, I'm pretty short, so it's not quite. But then you add a 4-foot pool noodle, or sometimes they're about 5 feet. And I always tell the kids, once you have your pool noodle, if you can hit anyone with the pool noodle, you're too close to them, because that gives them a natural, and they love just hitting each other anyway with the pool noodles. So it kind of starts the night with fun. And then what we always do is we just have taken a lot of the favorite games that the kids like to play in youth group, and we just make them pool noodle games. And so one example of this is Ninja, right? Ninja is the game where everybody puts their hands in, and then you say 3, 2, 1, Ninja, and then one person at a time takes a turn trying to hit someone else's hand, and you have 2 chances, which, each hand is your chance. And then this time it's like you have your pool noodle, and once your pool noodle gets hit, or you hit someone else's pool noodle, if yours gets hit, you're out. If you hit someone else's, they're out. And it makes the games actually go a lot faster, and people are just swinging their noodles and flying around, and it's just really fun to watch them get so excited. Another game that everyone loves is kickball. And since you're not touching the ball, there's no chance of spreading the sickness. And so you use your pool noodle. Once they kick the ball, if you hit the ball with your noodle, that's a catch. And then you have to hit the ball before you go and tag someone else. It's like it's charging your noodle so that you can tag them out. And they just think that's hilarious too. And then you can charge other people's noodles on the way, so you can get more than one person out. And so we just use pool noodles a lot. Actually, I keep buying them because keep taking them, and they love them, and they're like, can I have this? And I'm like, yeah, we'll buy some more. And so that's been the biggest thing, is to help with social distancing, because it gives them kind of a guide of how. And then when we sit down for small groups, or when I'm going to give a talk, I say, sit down, and if you can touch anyone with your noodle, you're too close to them. And so it naturally spreads them out.
Yep. And do you have a particular, are you guys using a theme that you're going through? And do you do a presentation every night, or do you bring someone in to do a presentation? What does the format look like, Andrew, as you guys are outside?
Yeah. And so I think too, like you had said, when everything shut down, I think so many of these kids kind of started to shut down. And so I think we need to go back to the basics, and we need to go back to the basic things of faith, because when people aren't going to mass regularly, when they're not in school being formed, maybe in Catholic school or faith formation, confirmation, when there's not that regular formation, I think we do have to start again, because we all kind of get lackadaisical, or we start to lose our devotions / our prayer commitments and, our consistency, and we all need that. And so really what we've been doing is we've been focusing just on the saints of that week. So we just take the liturgical calendar, and I just talk, or I have a couple of my high school, like if it's a middle school, we have a high school student, or we have seminarians at our parish right now. They're staying at our rectory, which is a huge blessing. And they've been doing some reflections on saints. And then we just take time to pray. And so I'm blessed to be able to play the guitar. So I'll play like one praise and worship song, maybe two. And we just sit outside and kind of reflect either on the sunset or on the front of our church or whatever it is that we're looking at, maybe just the trees and the wind blowing through them. And we just kind of listen to the songs and listen to the words. And so really talking about the saints, because those stories are just the heroes of our church, the people that lived their faith so boldly that most of them lost their lives or were very much persecuted for the faith. And so we talk about that, and we encourage the kids that they're called to that too. I said this the other night. I said, wouldn't it be great if at some point there was a parish named after you? Like parish of Andrew Wagenbach. And I was like, okay, that's not the point or the goal, but that's why we're at St. Charles Borromeo, because he was a very holy man. And there's lots of parishes that are now named after him because they're trying to emulate him. And so I think that's really what we're going after, is just still called to sainthood, even in the midst of this craziness. And that was something that's kind of a motto that we took on, is we're still called to sainthood. And what does that look like? And every time we do prayer, there's lots of games and fun. And really, I try to do a little bit of prayer, a little bit of talking, a little bit of sharing. And most of the time, so if we have an hour and a half, it's like an hour of games and a half an hour of, the other stuff, because we really want them to love it and want to come back next week. And that's really been happening, and then they're willing to sit for however long we do talk or whatever we talk about, because they know that we played games in the beginning and then we're going to end with games.
That's awesome. Have you seen other parishes doing this well too, Andrew? And have you been sharing your ideas or getting ideas from other parishes for doing outdoor ministry?
Yeah, actually, some of the coolest ideas that I've heard, and we've kind of implemented some of this, is a lot of parishes, once they started asking families to host bonfires in their backyard, like if they had a big backyard. Because not every parish is blessed to have large grounds where there's grass and you can do a lot of outdoor ministry. But there are people in the parish that have big backyards, maybe a cabin. And so I have some friends that have been doing bonfires, and that's been really awesome, because you're sitting around a bonfire. What's a better way to naturally start a conversation? Maybe there's some Bible sharing. They do some Bible study. What did you think about that? Lectio Divina is what some places have been doing. I know a lot of places, and we did this too, did a day camp, where the kids would come on site. Maybe they'd bring their own lunch. Then you would do games in the afternoon, and then dinner would be provided. And then we would move into the church, and we'd start with mass, and then we'd have adoration and just praise and worship, and just give these kids something that's normal, because it seems like everything's been canceled, and we just didn't want to cancel everything. We wanted to give them something, whatever we could. And I guess that's the thing I want to really, if anyone's watching and you're a youth minister out there, you can totally still do a ton of stuff. We haven't really missed a beat, if you will, in our ministries. And I actually have been growing. Like, we've been growing our ministry. I just started at St. Charles last July, and it's been really awesome. Actually, during the pandemic, we were able to start discipleship groups because all the parents are at home and all the kids are at home. And I was like, parents, you want discipleship groups? Let's do some Zoom meetings. And now those Zoom meetings have turned into those moms or dads are hosting events in their backyard. And so it's kind of like this transition of, we're doing the weekly youth group stuff, but our discipleship groups are also taking our lead and doing stuff outside in backyards. I know one of the groups just did like tie-dye night. They did tie-dye and shirts. I was glad I wasn't there because I'm not really a big tie-dyer. Another group was doing like paintings or something, like painting rocks. I don't know. I stay with the boys when we meet, we play games and stuff and talk about our prayer commitments. But the girls, they do more crafty activities.
For sure. Those are just some great, amazing ideas. And I think that it takes away the fear, right? We got to get creative and not be fearful of the requirements that are in front of us, right? With the mandates of staying home and wearing masks, et cetera, depending on, what state you're in and what county you're in and your requirements, but we can still do ministry. And people get tired, I think, especially kids, with the virtual stuff. It doesn't mean virtual opportunities aren't, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do them, right? But I think in a parish setting, to do as much as you can in person and being able to accompany and disciple, right, young people in that way. I know you mentioned earlier that you do this both for your middle school and high school students. Do you do that group together, or do you do one night middle school, one night high school? What does that look like, Andrew?
It actually works best for families with drop off and pickup if we do it all on one night. And so what we do is on Wednesday nights, so we just kind of keep our Wednesday nights rolling, because if it's midweek, you're not going to run into cabins, because a lot of people have cabins, or a lot of people go out of town over a weekend because they don't have to take as much vacation. So we just roll Wednesday nights all year. So all year long, we're doing stuff on Wednesday nights. And so we do middle school youth ministry earlier in the night, because sometimes bedtimes for, middle school kids, depending on where you're at, are earlier. And then our high school students come later on. It was really working well before the summer solstice, because now it's starting to get dark. Like by 9 o'clock, that we end at 9, right? And the kids are like, let's play some more. And I'm like, we can't even see the ball, like, I can't tell if you're social distance, all these kinds of things are starting to happen. So, as we go forward, I do have to start thinking about time, because the sun is getting lower in the sky. And that is the interesting part about doing ministry outdoors, is you can't just flip the light switch and turn the lights on and keep going as late as you want. So, but it also is very beautiful, because I guess too, I love the seasons, and I love how the church has liturgical seasons, and we're naturally, like right now, our garden is starting to really produce, but there's certain things that are being produced right now, and there's certain things we still have to wait for. And that's the beauty, I think, of doing ministry outdoors, is that you can't do snow sports right now because there's no snow. You can do lake stuff and you can go swimming, right? But then as we start to get into the school year, I was talking to my priest yesterday, and I was like, we're going to do outdoor ministry until we can't. He's like, well, someday it's going to be too cold. And I'm like, maybe. We'll get some gloves and stuff, and he's like, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do indoor ministry, because that's coming. And so I guess I'm excited to be doing as much outdoor ministry as we can, because it is really amazing to see these kids together. And I think it's the easiest way to kind of start doing stuff. If maybe your parish hasn't done a lot of stuff, it's the easiest way to say, hey, we're doing an outdoor activity. I know a lot of parents are excited to put their kids in, but there are definitely parents that are still hesitant. And that's something that we really try to focus on, because I don't want to just push everything into in-person, because then you kind of separate those families that aren't ready to send their kids. And so we still do some of the virtual things, and I agree, a lot of people are tired of them, but I also see the value of some of these kids wouldn't have any other connection with their friends except the virtual things. And so it definitely has to be a both end. It can't be one or the other. I have been a bit of it the last couple of weeks, because we did an overnight camp last week for our high school students, and we're doing an overnight camp next week for our middle school students. And so you still can do overnight camps too. You just have to follow a lot more rules. There's a lot of paperwork, but if you want to do it, I have our parish preparedness plan. That's a mouthful that I would be happy to share, because it kind of gives a framework of what we're doing, how we're doing it, what's expected of the people coming. And we did a high school camp, and it was life-changing for so many of those kids. And I'm very, very excited to be doing another one for middle schoolers, because my hope is that we don't lose the consistency of our summer programmings, really just giving that spark, igniting that faith, giving them an opportunity to really fall in love with the Lord, so that all year long we can kind of help foster that and turn that into a blazing flame that they can pass on to someone else.
Absolutely. Andrew, might we be able to share that document in the comments after we get done, so people can have that? And I think that's great to give people resources and ideas. And you've done so much work in this space, and I can tell that you love what you do. You love serving the church. You love ministering to young people. You get creative about it. I also know you have a heart and passion for just the family, right? The ministering to the whole family. And so, being conscious of that too, like, hey, what night of the week for families, and just, adapting to that, right? And making that available for their children. And we also know the power of children coming back home and sharing their faith with their families. I mean, I know both of us in our work have heard, I'm sure, many stories of families returning to church or becoming deeper involved in their faith because of one of their children's experience at a conference, or at an overnight retreat, or at, even your evening youth ministry evening nights.
Right.
Yeah.
It is amazing to watch a young person fall in love with the Lord, especially if their family, maybe isn't as strong in their own faith, because now that flame, that spark is in that family. And then as they start to grow and come more, then myself as a youth minister, I can start to have more relationship conversation with the parents when they're dropping them off, picking them up. And now I have more of a window in, because there's a lot of families that you just never get a chance to have conversations about anything of the faith unless we make some mandatory thing at church that they're kind of begrudgingly come to. And I was one of those kids. So I'm not trying to come down on people that aren't really there. I was that kid. I was like, do we really have to go to church? And I was forced to go to a youth camp, and it radically transformed my life. And then when I came home and started telling my family about it, my dad was very much impacted by my faith. And so, even in my own life, I witnessed that of, God really working in my heart, and then me passing that on to my dad. And now we both have a very deep, love of the Lord. And it's just really cool to see how God used him to start my faith, baptizing me and all that. And then myself to bring him even deeper. And that's the beauty of the faith, is you never know who is listening. You never know who is hearing what you're saying and really taking it to heart. And that's why it's so important that we share what God is doing in our life, because it is the greatest tool we have to evangelize the world, is what God has done in our hearts.
Amen. Amen. I think it's a beautiful note to close on. And just, Andrew, thank you. Thank you for just the work that you do. I admire youth ministers every day in the trenches, serving young people and navigating the crazy time right now of doing ministry. Yeah. And not getting discouraged, but actually saying, let's take this on as a challenge and see how we can be creative about serving our young people and bringing them to an encounter with Christ, outdoors, or as it gets colder here eventually, back into indoors somehow. So thank you so much. I just enjoyed chatting with you. And I know that our viewers will gain much from your presentation today and your thoughts today. A lot of practical advice for people to take to heart and to pray about and do some good youth ministry and effective youth ministry in their parishes. So thank you so much, and God bless everybody. And we'll see you next week on PFY Live. And our guest will be Matt Ricketts next week. So look forward to chatting with him. And God bless everybody. Bye.
Don't forget your pool noodle.